Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's Parenting in the Age of AI. I'm Amy Love and the founder of Discovering AI, and so glad you're able to join us today. We've got a lot of really interesting things to talk about very quickly in today's session so that you can walk away with additional clarity, insight for yourself and for your family, which will lead to greater confidence for yourself and your kids, and as a family, greater connection, especially during this period of rapid growth and change that's happening with AI. So I want to start today off by just talking about something that Maddie and I had the chance to do this weekend. We had the opportunity to attend and hold a booth at the Santa Cruz STEAM Expo. Science, technology, engineering, art, and math. And they combined it for their entire county out at the Santa Cruz County Fairgrounds. And while I was there, it was really a unique opportunity to just continue to interact with parents and with teachers and with administrators and just listen and talk about their interests, their fears, their excitement, and to recognize just how fast this is all moving as we talk about AI, and think about it from the standpoint of how different everybody's perspective is on this and how people are trying to come together around the topic of AI and schools and families. And so when Maddie and I were there and we had the chance to interact with kids of all ages, kindergarten through 12, with a wide variety of students that are going to magnet schools, going to straight public schools, that are doing homeschooling, also the chance to talk with technology engineers and leaders in Silicon Valley. It was really a moment to continue to underscore just how the reality is no one really knows what we should expect and about what's going to happen with AI in the future. And no one really has a clear sense yet how to move forward. Yet this overriding undercurrent is the recognition and the need and the feeling that we need to be intentional, that we need to figure out and have a plan and a path moving forward. And that's a big part of what Discovering AI is looking to do for parents and families, as well as schools and administrators across the country. Because as I sat there and I talked with Google and Apple and Meta and other tech engineers, it was amazing how often the comment kept coming back up of, I feel safe in my job right now, but I'll tell you this much, we're not hiring junior engineers right now. Or when I talked with parents, they're like, I realize that AI and my kids, they're using it and they're accelerating and they're understanding with it faster than I am. And as we think about how does this work with school, what are the implications for it? So it really is, we're finding ourselves at this moment in time where there's a lot of noise and there's a lot of circulating of ideas and issues. And the question is, how do we reduce all of that down to concrete steps and actions that we as parents can take that are really going to help prepare our kids for success in the age of AI? And I think it's important whenever we see something like this, which is such a dramatic shift in what has been the norm, that sometimes it's helpful to just take that step back and just say, okay, how can I ground myself into what we're doing and how we can approach it? So that's really the point and the approach that we like to take with these every week parenting in the age of AI conversations. It's really designed to help you as parents build clarity, confidence, and connection. So I'm so glad you're here. Now, I wanted to start it off today, before I get into what was this week's newsletter topic and our Mind Spark, is also acknowledge what was actually considered by many to be the quote unquote big tobacco moment for social media. Now, I like to underscore that social media, it may use AI, but the topics around AI and where AI is going and the impact it may have on our children, that is actually very different than social media. But social media is really a product, a community-based product app that came onto the forefront, I believe, with best intentions to create a connected world with people. Yet the reality is people and companies can use it for other reasons as it starts to have a profit motive and drive and determination for longer engagements and time on screen and opportunities to support the free app version through the use of advertising, what have you. I would be remiss if we're talking about parenting in the age of AI if we didn't at least acknowledge this moment of the big tobacco moment for social media. At least that's what the prediction is, or I shouldn't say prediction. That's really the question. Is that what the rulings that just came down will ultimately in history look back upon? Now, for those of y'all, I have a lot of young people that said, what's the big tobacco moment? The big tobacco moment was when the large cigarette manufacturers were brought to Congress and they needed to be held. They were held responsible for making their products addictive and knowing that they were making their products addictive and that those products were harmful to their customers. And so the lawsuit relative to Meta and also other social media organizations was in fact this comment of, did these companies and do these companies know that social media can be addictive, and are they playing into that addictiveness and creating harm for our young people? And no doubt Meta and others will, I'm sure, challenge the ruling and appeal the case. And so this is just the beginning of a long drawn out legal environment. But it's important to recognize that when you think about this and you think about social media is an app, and your kids yourself download it on your device and you choose to open it up and engage with it. But when we think about AI, it is becoming ubiquitous in all that we see and that we do, and is not directly an app that you would go to open. So I like to talk about that as different. And I chose to put up this image of Forbes article because it's really interesting that here's a Forbes article talking about the lawsuit where Meta was held liable and responsible for harm caused to its users, which again, they will appeal. But then right next to that on the Forbes page is actually a different article. It's actually a media interview that's just running through Forbes advertising cycles where Mark Zuckerberg is talking about AI in the metaverse and what that actually means. And so it's important to see how these technologies are coming together in a way that it's just constantly in your day-to-day living and in your moment. So when we talk about today's newsletter topic that was just released today, this is really about the fact that government is starting to step in on AI. And the question, the conversations, even with what I had at the Santa Cruz STEAM Expo, is some parents asking the question, so does that mean we can step back? And actually, as parents, it actually means we've got to step in. We need to step in even more with being intentional. Why? Because if we think about where we are with technology or any sort of consumer protection, there will be guidelines and guardrails that get put in place. Yet there will also still be the corporations that have the profit motives. And yet the reality of how we as parents raise our kids, it's all still very relational. It's very much relational to the kitchen table, about the conversations that we're having with our kids, about the values that we're putting in place, and about helping them learn and understand what AI really is and what it isn't. AI is a prediction model. It's going to predict what it thinks you want as the next answer, not necessarily based in facts, but based upon what it has learned, but not certainly what we as humans might be able to imagine or create for the future. And so it's coming at a time where, right on the heels of a newsletter article that we talked about last week, our last week newsletter article talked about how the White House just came out with a new AI legislative framework. And it's really important to keep in mind that legislative framework, because the framework itself really talked about the reality from the perspective of the government. And I'm going to read this directly to you, is that AI services and platforms must take measures to protect children while empowering parents to control their children's digital environment and upbringing. Again, the federal government's view on the policy for artificial intelligence is they're saying, yes, AI services and platforms do need to take measures to protect kids, but they are putting the onus and the responsibility of that in terms of the parents to control their children's digital environment and upbringing. And so that's the federal government's recommendations. And that's what they're going to be pushing forward in terms of their guidance. Now, when we think about this, what this really means is this is where we're going to see continued legislative discussion, engagements, challenges that are coming through. And when we think about it, why? Because we have situations such as the state of California. And that's actually what just came out this week. The state of California and other states, we've seen Utah, we've seen Colorado, we've even seen Florida attempt this. Other states are saying, you know what, we don't want to leave the government policy making simply at the federal level. But you can imagine the challenges that then can come to play as a result. Because if every single state in the United States has different policies as it relates to AI, how would interstate commerce work, and how would businesses work, and what would be the products that we as families could use? So I think we're going to continue to see states pushing for control and for protection of our students and our children, with the desire that ultimately it reaches a federal level and an opportunity. And so while government is stepping in, it's stepping in very differently. Federal government is saying, you know what, we're going to make it very clear that we expect parents to take on that leadership role of directing their children's digital engagement environment. And then you have the states that are many states that are also pushing to say, but you know what, we want to see tighter controls. And so one way states are doing that is California is putting forth that in order to do business in the state of California, you've got to be able to demonstrate how you're protecting the citizens of California from misuse and or inappropriate use as it comes to AI and the programs. And so when we think about this as parents, it's really important that we continue to really recognize that while I give the analogy oftentimes that, you know, when it's time for our children to learn how to drive, we're able to share with them 20 plus years of experience of driving. But when it comes to sharing and helping our kids learn how to use AI, we're learning it at the same time with them. And perhaps, in fact, our kids are even ahead of us in their learning about AI. But they're not ahead of us in terms of life experiences. Those life experiences that help one understand that while things may have been designed initially with the altruistic method and mindset of bringing the world together and connecting us through common interests and ideals and actions and finding unique subgroups that are of interest to us, which is a big part of Facebook's connecting the world. But as companies move and go forward, they find themselves caught in this model of the free, from an enterprise standpoint, of developing products that generate revenue on their behalf so that they can continue as an ongoing concern. So for us as parents, we have to find a way to know that we're navigating the middle of this. We're going to have some federal regulations around student guidance and support. We're going to have states that are involved, but we're also going to have the companies that are going to continue with innovation being at the forefront of what they're pushing the envelopes for, pushing their products forward, and not necessarily always knowing how and where and why they might be used in ways that aren't necessarily directionally intended at the outset that could harm our children. So it really is, when I talk about this is the time where we actually have to lean in more so than ever with AI, that's really what we have to do. And so when we think about it, that's why we come up every Friday with a new MindSpark activity. And that's what I really like to use in part these Facebook Live sessions for, is to help you think about how you could use our our MindSpark activities to allow you and your family to really grow in your knowledge and understanding of AI and open up these conversations collectively together. This is a reality that we're going to be learning this alongside each other. And so this week's Mind Spark that will come out on Friday builds upon this week's newsletter. And it's asking you the question to think about it. What is the kitchen table policy for your family as it relates to AI? And the reality with this is recognizing that every single family will have their own unique family AI values, just like they have their own family values around what and how they approach conflict resolution, or what their thoughts are about extracurricular activities, or what their thoughts about community service are. These are really, truly unique discussions within every single family, within every single home. And that is, if you think about how often have you sat down at the kitchen table with your child, and just a year and a half ago, you would have had your textbooks. Maybe you would have the chance to interact with other parents or a teacher or maybe a tutor to get help. But now all of a sudden, at your fingertips, you can access, as long as you have broadband internet service, you could use Google Gemini, Claude Anthropic, Copilot, you could use ChatGPT, and you can have at your fingertips the opportunity to start asking for assistance. I like to give the example of when my daughter was going to have a literature final, and she had read 4 books over the course of the year. And she said, how do I study for this? And I didn't really remember the plots and the elements of the stories that she had read. So while in her case for school, she wasn't allowed to use AI, I, as a parent, could actually say, hey, my child who's in X grade has just read these 4 books. Help me come up with 3 or 4 questions I could ask her to help her think about how she might prepare for this final. It's not about giving me the answers for our family values. It was about helping me know what questions to ask her. And it helped me think about, for how did this character development match this character development? And in this storyline, what was it through? So at the kitchen table policy, we had a policy last year that she wasn't allowed to use AI for school because that was her school policy. But we did also have a family policy that I, as mom, could use it to help me ask the right questions of her, to help her think uniquely about her own knowledge of what she's learned over the school year to prepare appropriately. But now, if we fast forward to this year, some of her classes are now allowing her to use AI. So what is our kitchen table policy? Our kitchen table policy is we really understand what are each of your classes' teachers' expectations around the use of AI in your studies. Is it allowed with guidelines, or is it not allowed at all? And at the same point in time, we also talk about our kitchen table policy about, all right, how could we also use AI in our own daily lives to help us grow and develop those more uniquely human traits that are going to help us thrive in the age of AI? How can it help us think about critical thinking or problem solving or creativity, or how we might be able to take initiative to solve a problem? So the kitchen table moments for us as parents is to go ahead and lean in, not lean back. You may not be an AI expert. You may not have a lot of tech experience. None of that matters at this point in time. What matters now is simply having the conversation. So when you're there and you're seeing your kids doing their homework, ask them the question, what do you think about AI? And just listen. Hear what their thoughts are. Hear what their engagements are. And then when they start to talk with you about it, think about the question of saying, where do you think AI could or should be allowed, and where do you think it shouldn't be allowed? And then you could even ask the question, do you think some of your fellow students are using it outside of the guidelines or inside the guidelines? And just listen for the conversation that comes forward, because you have an opportunity to truly turn a simple homework moment into a smart family talk. And with these Mind Spark activities every single Friday, they give you the chance to pick up a different topic. This one happens to be really around kind of ethics and values as a family, about how you might use it. Other ones can help you think about bias or limitations, or also the potential opportunity for how AI can help you. So when we think about this, I want to encourage you also to think about as you think about these family conversations, if you're looking for some additional guidance, that's really when we talk about the fact that you've got the federal and the state governments and everybody else moving forward and different schools doing different things. We within Discovering AI really offers something that is really helpful for families. And in fact, it's our mission to ideally have every family with a K through 12 student complete their own family AI game plan. And that is going to be unique to, again, your family values. And you can find this free resource on our website at discoveringai.org. If you go there, you can complete this online, and it helps you as a family ask the questions. It's a guide step by step to think about how in your particular family would you like to see AI used or not used or used with guidance. And it gives you the framework to have the conversation, to understand how you're using AI in everyday life, how your child might be addressing it in school or what your school policies are, and then also to really think about how you want to make sure that you're creating those development and learning opportunities, because AI is going to be an integral part of all of our young kids' lives moving forward. And this is an opportunity for us as parents to set the stage for what that means. So I want to encourage you to think about that if you have the opportunity to not only take a look at this week's newsletter article that gives you more insights and information about what's happening at the policy level from a government perspective, but also think about this Friday, having that kitchen table moment with your family to talk about AI and how it interacts with school, and then taking the step forward to also complete the family AI game plan. In doing so, you really have the chance and the opportunity as a family to create clarity for yourself as parents about what you can do and the roles you can play. You can create confidence for your kids in terms of them feeling more well-grounded about what is the right use of AI or not, and at what stage in their development through K through 12 is the right stage to use it, and in what circumstances. And then as a family, to create the connection around AI and understanding the role it's playing across so many aspects of our daily lives, whether we realize it yet or not. But these tools will provide this opportunity for you to do that. So with that, I just want to encourage you to have a great week. Thank you so much for joining us for Parenting in the Age of AI.